Sam Shaw here, founder of Wall Street Mastermind. Excited to be back today with another client interview for you guys. And today I'm really excited to have Harry on with us. Harry just finished going through the summer 2024 recruiting process. He's currently a junior. I'll let him introduce himself in a second here, but he was able to successfully land an offer that I think he's very happy with. And so I want to get him to come on here and just kind of talk to you guys about how he was able to do what he did, and hopefully get some takeaways from his experience that will then help you in your own process as well. So, Harry, first of all, thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. And if you don't mind, just start things off for us by introducing yourself a little bit and just telling our audience kind of who you are.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Sam. So my name is Harry Serrer. I'm from France, and I'm a junior at the University of Pennsylvania, studying econ and math. Yeah, that's pretty much my story. I'm a junior here. Just got my offer for next summer, 2024, in investment bank. So yeah, happy to be here.
That's awesome, man. And what was the offer that you got, or where are you going to be going?
So I'll be working at SocGen, so Société Générale, which is a French investment bank, for the 2024 summer analyst program.
Yeah.
For global markets. That's the team I'll be joining next summer.
Okay. It's awesome, man. And what did it feel like when you got your offer?
I mean, very happy, very relieved,
Yeah.
but also very happy to see that my work paid off finally.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because obviously reading between the lines, and as most people know, like investment banking recruiting is a very long and grueling process. And anyone who ends up coming out the other side successfully always has to put in a lot of work, right? And so that's part of what makes it so rewarding. But also, as they say in life, nothing good comes easy, right? But so let's go back to like the beginning of your, I guess, recruiting journey, so to speak. You started working with, I mean, it's November as of the time of this recording, November of junior year. I think you started working with us at like the very end of March of sophomore year. Prior to coming to Wall Street Mastermind, had you already been doing other recruiting prep on your own, or was that kind of like the first time you really started seriously recruiting?
Yeah, I think so. When I joined the end of March last academic year, I definitely, like, when I joined the program was definitely the beginning of my hard recruiting cycle. Because before that, I didn't really know what to do, to be honest. Like, there was no structure, which is something that I got through Wall Street Mastermind. And so wasn't really doing anything much. I was like learning, obviously, like the different principles of like accounting, valuation, and all that. But it definitely was hard because I'd never really taken any finance classes and whatnot beforehand. So learning it on my own was definitely really tough. And obviously beyond just like the technical part, just like, what you say during networking calls, how you send emails, like all those other parts of the program.
Gotcha. So that's interesting, because that was like, maybe a month and a half out from like the end of sophomore year, right? I feel like when people hear like, oh, this guy goes to UPenn, like the impression that most people have of like Penn kids is like they step foot on campus freshman year, and then they already knew that they wanted to do investment banking, and then like they start working towards that. Like you were probably, quite frankly, surrounded by people like that at school, right? So like, were you planning on doing something else aside from banking your first, 1.5 years in school? Or like, what kind of made you realize that actually investment banking is what I want to pursue?
Yeah, I think so when I arrived at Penn, my goal wasn't necessarily to do investment banking. Like I had no idea what investment banking was or what the different fields of finance were. I just kind of had that motivation at the back of my head to go towards finance. And I think that narrowed down to investment banking early my sophomore year, because just I think it's just like everyone at Penn is doing that. So I think that was a big factor. Everyone is doing it. So you're like, okay, this seems interesting. Learned about it, seemed pretty interesting. And then again, like I really wanted to do finance. And so I thought, investment banking is probably a good first step in that sector. So that was my motivation.
So then basically it took you until sophomore year to early sophomore year to narrow it down to banking, and then like probably for from like early sophomore year till like that March timeframe, during that 1 to 1.5 semesters or so, you were just kind of like trying to feel your way around and figure things out and see what you need to do. But is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, it's that. I was also focused on getting an internship for my sophomore year, and I also didn't really know what the calendar was like when I was supposed to start recruiting. Like I had no idea how anything worked, so that was
Mm,
also another.
gotcha. So like you weren't involved in like any like I don't know finance club. I feel like a lot of Pinkers are in like all these different finance clubs on campus, and they're very plugged into like the
Yeah,
recruiting scene and the timeline stuff. Like you're saying you didn't have any of those resources at your disposal.
no, there definitely was those resources, but I joined the Wharton Undergraduate Finance Club late in
Mm,
first semester, which was after like, the a whole coffee chat period went out because obviously the clubs are the ones who tell you what coffee chats are happening and whatnot.
mm,
And I had joined after they had kind of sent out all those invitations, and so I just missed it by like a month, kind of. So
gotcha. Okay. So basically, by the time you really started making moves, you were already kind of behind the eight ball.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so then like what made you I guess what made you want to join Wall Street Mastermind?
yeah. What made me really want to join Wall Street Mastermind? There's a few reasons. I think the main one is just the structure that it provides. Like I
Mm,
said earlier, that I had no idea how recruiting work. Where you start, what you're supposed to do. And when I joined it, you kind of get this like step by step modules that explain you like how to network, what to study for the technicals, how to answer behaviorals. And so I think this is really the structure was one reason.
mm,
And another reason was being able just to like ask questions at any time and
mm,
being able to like, do mock interviews with people who've already gone through the process and who work in that kind of sector already.
mm.
So those two things definitely motivated me.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, did you have to like convince your parents to let you do this program? And like, if so, like, was that a difficult conversation or how did that go?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, it's a pretty big decision. And I definitely had to talk to my parents just to like explain to them what the benefits were and why I needed this program.
Mm,
So yeah, it was definitely a conversation that I had to have.
yeah. Were they pretty supportive or were they like, because I feel like a lot of parents are like, well, why do you need this? Like, you go to,
Mm.
you already go to Penn and this and that, like, just use the resources at school. Like, or was that like a pretty easy conversation? Like, your parents just,
Um, yeah, I think it was definitely I definitely had to explain it to them. They were definitely like what you just said, like why don't you just use the resources at school?
yeah.
And to be honest, like the school doesn't really they don't really provide that much structure. It's kind of really free for all.
Mm,
Um, and so that was kind of the argument that I took, and it kind of became clear to them how it could be useful.
gotcha. Okay. That's awesome, man. So let's talk about like after you actually join, right? So you go through this recruiting process, you finally get your offer, I guess is like what, late October,
Mhm.
right? And so basically like a 7 month grind from late March to late October.
Yeah.
Uh, walk us through that walk us through that journey, man. Like what were you doing over the last 7 months? What was it like? What were the things that you did inside this program that you feel like really made a positive impact on the
Mhm.
outcome for you?
Yeah, I think the start of those 7 months was really me just like for the first 2 months, like working every day, like 5, 6 hours on what like all the different modules. Like I completed most modules pretty early. And so at first it was really that learning the ropes. And then I kind of reached this like sort of flow state where, I'd just like every day I'd send out emails, knew what to send out, who to contact, how to contact them, all that.
Mm,
And then at the same time practicing my technicals, practicing my behaviorals. And so for those 7 months was really that. And during the summer, like I had a lot less time because I was doing an internship. So I think I kind of slowed down this summer. But that's when I kind of started getting like actual interviews regularly.
mm,
And doing those interviews. Obviously at first it wasn't as good as it was like, like 2 or a month ago when I was
mm.
really kind of like I just knew what to expect. So you're just working a lot all the time, every day.
Yeah. I guess that makes sense. So lots of applying, doing internships, networking, prepping
Mhm.
for interviews, both behaviorals and technicals. Those are kind of like all the major categories that people tend to have to work on while
Yeah.
they're recruiting. Um, I think one common question that a lot of people tend to have is like, okay, yeah, I know those are all the things I need to do. But like, what's the difference between what I would be able to just do on my own versus like, if I were in a program like this, like in hindsight, I know you um kind of joined this right when you decided to like seriously recruit. So I guess you never like some people have like struggled on their own first before coming to
Mhm.
us. So they have that comparison. But for you in hindsight, like if you think about the process, like were there specific things that you feel like really made a difference for you? Or like, yeah, if I had done it on my own, then I would not have been able to do X, for example. Like, is there anything like that? Or what do you think is like the biggest benefit of kind of like being a part of this, I guess?
Yeah, I think it's definitely being able to like have all this content and someone explaining how you walk through these different questions, whether they're technical or behavioral. That was one thing. And seeing someone explain it to you instead of just looking at a guide and
Mm,
reading it. Because I had no really like prior knowledge of finance, accounting, all that. So having someone explain it to me through video was really important.
mm,
And another thing that I think I wouldn't have been able to benefit from if I hadn't joined the program was just being able to ask questions anytime and having an answer within like max like 3 hours, and so just being able to ask as many questions you want because I don't really know who to ask questions to. I don't have anyone close to me who actually works in banking, and
mm,
so I there was no one I could ask questions to.
gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And that's huge, honestly. Because also it's like a lot of times the questions can be when it comes to recruiting can be quite nuanced and specific, right? Like it's very specific to your personal situation,
Mm.
or like even as something as seemingly trivial as like, hey, banker just sent me this email and what should I say in response?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, definitely.
some of these are like not the types of questions that you can just like punch into a Google search bar and be like, how do I respond to this email or whatever, right? And so I guess in terms of like the journey itself, then, because you know you you probably had like multiple interviews, right? And I'm sure some, obviously ultimately you got offers, so some went really well, and some probably didn't go as well as you would have liked it to go. What It's like, what did you learn from going through that process? Because I feel like a lot of times when students look at other students that have already gotten offers, and I don't feel like people talk about this ever. It's like they just see the end outcomes, like, oh yeah, this guy got an offer. It must have been so
Mhm.
easy. It must have been so easy for him, or like he's so lucky, or whatever, right? And it's like, but actually, having worked with so many students, we know that behind the scenes in reality, it's not all like sunshines and rainbows and unicorns. It's like
Yeah.
you had to eat a lot of shit along the way and take a lot of rejections, and it can be pretty brutal, and then you have to like keep going until you eventually come out of the other side of the tunnel, right? And so like
Mhm.
talk about that a little bit, like how did you handle that and deal with that, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was definitely not just feeling because at first, I do interviews and it wouldn't go super well, and you kind of panic. And so just remaining calm was the thing that I sort of developed, and always kind of like believing that there's a next shot. It kind of sounds corny, but that's true. Like there's always like another step, another chance,
Yeah.
and always like every time I made a mistake, always kind of like made sure I remembered it
Mm,
and wrote it down, worked on that, practiced it, and yeah, that definitely helped. And I think it's also just learning how to be calm in interviews. Like whenever you
mm,
get a tough question, you tend to kind of tense up. You just like acknowledge it and you show that you're calm about it. That's something that helped me a lot.
yeah. Okay. um do you have any tricks for like how you force yourself to stay calm? Because I know students that just no matter what will get super anxious going, like
Mhm.
even like let's say like during mock interviews they know how to answer all the questions, once they get into the real thing, they're so tense that
Hmm.
they start choking, right?
Yeah.
Um, anything that you do in particular that helps you stay calm?
Yeah. I think also it's like the way I see the state of being calm, you know, like when I'm in an interview, I see being calm as being a way of kind of testing of them testing me. You know, if they see that I'm tense, you know, like I know that's a way of testing me. And so I
Mm,
try to remain calm to show them that I can be calm in that type of situation and in a high stress type of environment. And
mm,
so I really see it as a test. And that kind of like switched it, you know, and it kind of helped me see in it in a different way.
yeah, that's a really good point. Because we get this question a lot, or this kind of experience a lot, where students go into an interview, and you might have experienced this yourself too, where the banker will just look completely disinterested, or they'll be like, checking their emails while you're trying to talk, or they'll just like look super bored and like not engaged at all throughout like the entire conversation. And you're like, this guy hate me or something? And then people will come and ask us after the interview is like, did I do something wrong, or what does this mean?
Yeah.
Like, did I fail the interview? And we always have to tell them is like, honestly, like, yeah, sure. Sometimes it could just be that the banker's a dick, or he's just having a bad day. Maybe he had a fight with his wife that morning, whatever, who knows?
Mhm.
But honestly,
Mhm.
more often than not, if it's that extreme, they're actually doing it on purpose
Yeah,
to test you, to stress test you, to
definitely,
see
definitely.
how if you're gonna crack under pressure. And like a lot of candidates, unfortunately, will fall for that and be like, oh my God, like this guy has no interest in me whatsoever. And then it gets to their head and they start stuttering and tripping up and whatever, versus like what you mentioned, like the people that take the mentality of what you just said, which is like, oh, they're testing me and they
Mhm.
want to see how I'm going to behave. Am I going to stay calm? Then it's like, then you do a lot better. Right. And I was telling people, was like, look,
Yeah.
both possibilities are valid. Like maybe they do actually hate you, but if they do actually hate you, then you're screwed anyway, no matter what. And there's nothing you can do about it. And it's out of your control. So it
Right.
doesn't benefit you at all to assume that that's what's happening. The second scenario where they're actually testing you, that is actually in your control. And so
Mhm.
you should just assume that that is what's happening and hope for the best. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's definitely a really smart thing that you did there. So I guess like one last final question for you, because I don't want to take up too much of your time, but um, now that you've gone through the process, you're on the other side. Um, what's the best piece of advice you have for people who are maybe still going through the process currently, or maybe they're about to start? Like, is there
Mhm.
anything that you learned or picked up along the way
Mhm.
that you wish you knew back when you were first starting this process that, just would have made your life a lot easier?
Yeah. I think definitely start early. That was my mistake personally. I started kind of late. So definitely start as early as possible because you know it can't hurt. Especially if you're not studying like finance, you know, just start as early as
Uh-oh. Did I lose you? Okay, you're back. Yeah, I
I'm
thought we
back.
lost you for a second. Yeah, yeah.
No worries.
No worries.
Um,
You were saying to start early, especially if you're not studying finance, and then that's
yeah,
kind of where we lost you.
yeah. So that's what I meant. Yeah, like really start as early as possible. Make sure that you're really ready. And network as much as possible, like because it's a long process before the game actually starts.
Hmm.
And the second point be just kind of be ready to, you know, not do as well as you'd hoped at first. Because, you know, like for me personally, my interview performances like for my first interview were nothing compared to my last one. Just
Hmm.
because, you know, like you kind of learn every interview I learned more things and like how to be calm, how to answer a question better. Like it's a whole process and be ready to like accept the fact that at first it might not be amazing, but that it will get very like a lot better after.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, it's kind of like everything else you do in life, right? It's like the more reps you have doing something, the
Right.
more comfortable you become. Especially if it's something that's brand new, as in like up to this point in your life, you probably didn't have to interview that much,
Yeah.
And so like it's almost like the first time you go to a gym and you try to bench or squat or whatever, like your form is probably super awkward, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
But also like if you work with a coach or a strength trainer or whatever, they can correct your form, just prep you as much as possible. But then there's still going to be nothing like going through the actual thing itself.
Definitely,
Right.
definitely.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think, you know, to your, like, I don't know how many interviews you ended up having. Sounds like quite a few, but I think some people
Yeah.
don't have as many at bats. Like they don't have the luxury of getting as many interviews. Obviously, a lot of that comes down to like how good you're able to make your resume and how well you network. But um, don't get me wrong, like every interview opportunity is still a precious opportunity, and like you know you want to make sure that you make the most out of each one. That is why the preparation that you do beforehand will hopefully minimize the number of interviews you have to go through that end up just being almost like I don't want to call them practice reps, but like
I see what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, and that's what's gonna maximize your success, right?
Mhm.
But I think that those are really good advice that you gave there. So thank you for sharing that.
Of
So
course.
I guess guys, for those of you who are kind of still listening, like if you find yourself in a similar situation, like if you're maybe starting late or you didn't know you want to do banking, right when you got to college, which is like almost feels like what needs to happen nowadays with how early recruiting is starting. But you're just realizing now that this is what you want to do and you're ready to work hard and put everything you got into it, but you just want, some structure, you want some guidance. You want to make sure that you're being efficient with your time and, that there's not a lot of wasted effort, so to speak, on, spent on trial and error and whatnot. Then I want to encourage you to book a call with our team. You can do that by going to www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. The street is abbreviated to ST, so it's wallstmastermind.com/apply. And, we'll talk to you and figure out what your situation is and come up with a game plan that's personalized to your situation. If we feel like we can help, if we can't, then like we'll probably just give you some advice and send you on your way. But either way, we'll do our best to just help you out and hopefully get you one step closer to your goals. So with that said, Harry, I want to thank you again for taking the time to be here with us today and just to share a little bit about your own recruiting journey and your process. And I want to congratulate you again on a really, really great offer. And I'm really excited to see what you accomplished, not only this upcoming summer, but also, for full time and beyond. So if you ever have
Thank
any
you. Of
questions or anything else that you need help with, like, don't be a stranger. You know how to reach us. So
course.
absolutely. Cool. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back with more of these for you guys in the near future. And until next time. All right.